Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the afternoon show. Every one of us are dreamers, right? We see a lot of dreams. We are more than 1.3 billion people, so which means in a day at least we have one more than a billion dreams, right? Similarly, when it relates across to our e-commerce community, there are endless opportunities and there are endless dreams to expand business globally. So, with our next speaker and insightful leader, Mr. Vivek Somareddy, who's the director of fulfillment channels at Amazon, we will learn about the steps Amazon is taking to bring you closer to your next customer. So, stay tuned and listen to him. Next, over to you, Vivek.
All right. Thank you, Amit, and thanks to the Pioneer team for having me here. I'm really excited to take a very short session on how the landscape is changing with respect to the retail setup, the supply chain, the customer expectations, and how retailers can take advantage of this change, which potentially has been unfortunately brought on us, but also make the best of the situation by looking at what opportunities are out there and maximize the business potential. So I'll take a very few set of minutes to walk us through what's happening and what you should do as retailers to benefit from this. Um, Something you keep hearing and you potentially also get tired of is this thing called new normal. Everybody keeps saying this is the new normal. But my take is it really something that's completely changed due to the COVID situation? From my perspective, at least, it's just an acceleration of trends that were ongoing. For example, like when demonetization happened, it's not that it ushered in digitization of payments, it just accelerated it and gave it a really big step jump. And with the social distancing norms that have come about, I think that's leading to innovation in multiple areas, especially in terms of digitization of commerce, and of course a much bigger push to payments. I think that's what we are seeing right now, and these were trends that would have caught on. Just that necessity is leading to faster invention in the space. There's also a lot of talk about, hey, customers will become a lot more choosy in their spending decisions. Customer spending is going to fall off. The consumer habits are going to change. That I believe is true to a certain extent. Customers will be more, you know, informed in their purchasing decisions, at least for a period until there is a recovery of the economy and cut back spending. But I also think there is fatigue in terms of living in this new model, and recreation is restricted, travel is restricted. You know, the large functions which typically we as Indians really make happen and enjoy are also curtailed to a large extent. So shopping is one place where customers can really exercise their choice. And if we look at the trends that are happening, at least from an e-commerce perspective, the shopping behavior has actually picked up, or the shopping volumes have actually picked up. The trends have changed. The part which I just mentioned, that customers will be more informed, that is absolutely panning out. They are currently more value conscious. I'm not saying price conscious, they're more value conscious. And only when it comes to high consideration purchases, which is high selling price purchases, is where customers are seeing more slowdown with respect to making some of the impulse purchases, and also stuff which, because of the work from home situation, and this is mostly relevant for professionals in terms of fashion and apparel, but that volume is shifting to more of home needs, work from home needs, needs for kids, toys, all of those things are picking up. So overall spending, I don't think will get curtailed. but there will be a more informed decision making by customers and some changes in the categories which see growth and categories which may pause for a little bit of time. So let's now look at what's changing overall, both from the industry and the supply chain perspective, and also a little bit deeper into what consumers expect in this current situation. Starting with the industry perspective, and this is no secret, there's large movements being planned from the traditional supply chain. And while I'm being a little diplomatic here, this basically means that dependency on sourcing from certain countries is going to be, really taken a hard look at. And there's a lot of reshoring going on, and that means like bringing back sourcing and manufacturing to home countries. Almost every country has started a reshoring program. There's also countries which are getting together in terms of creating agreements so that they diversify sourcing not just internally but across, a group of countries based on who is, better suited for certain products. And these are all, trying to diversify and reduce dependencies. We just have to see and wait and watch on how these things pan out because manufacturing always is a long lead time activity, and then it's only time will tell, which is the next few years, on whether some of these intentions will stick or we will get back to, some of the traditional supply chains we have had. Now, this is more from a supply chain perspective. When I talk about the consumer perspective, I think those changes are significant and absolutely happening and will continue to change. Supply is where we'll need to wait and watch whether the plans which are currently being put forth by various countries and organizations will pan out. The big change we have seen, at least during the period of the constraint, was supply. Supply got severely constrained, and while customer demand did not, everybody was depleting stocks that were built up, and then most retailers had a difficult time getting access to supply. So this brought in a number of innovations, and those innovations are happening now in terms of how do we maximize utilization and reduced waste. So earlier, even wasteful supply chains could work, and a big example is the fashion industry, specifically the fast fashion industry. Their cycles are a few months, and there's very little predictability with respect to how much quantity of a certain style or SKU you will sell. So there would be some judicious thought with respect to how much to procure, but otherwise it would always end up being procured in bulk and then liquidated post that. With the change in behavior and the shopping control which suddenly happened, many of the fast fashion brands are sitting with piles of inventory which they are now unwilling to liquidate en masse because of the fear of losing brand equity, right? So this has brought in a lot of thinking in the industry that the procurement has to be more judicious and more real time. So any supply chain which was not set up and which was inefficient will potentially get wound down, and only the supply chains which were strong and resilient and are adaptive are the ones which will continue. So this is one of the And that's where this concept of cognitive supply chains come in. It's just a fancy term, but it's about building inventory management systems and tools that kind of use machine learning to self-learn and correct ordering and purchasing behavior that are really sensitive to ongoing trends and can quickly adapt to any input signals that whoever is operating such systems put in. So the biggest benefit is, of course, reduced inventory risk, but better outcome will be, giving customers products which they actually need and customizing them. So those are the two big changes which are happening. Now, even machine learning systems take time to learn, at least the traditional systems. They use historical data. So that's where the cognitive learning comes in, where it should get close to reality working couple and technology and things like omni-channel not also for folks and multi-channel is here to stay, and it's actually from a retailer perspective a very big safety net. If your sales were pretty much heavily focused on offline, with the consumer shopping trends changing, it is a good opportunity to try a marketplace, multiple marketplaces, and not just that. Even set up your own direct to consumer websites, because what will happen later is you need to start building this relationship with your customer. Until now, it was the walk in customer where you could talk and establish that trust. How do you translate that to a digital world is a big area which I'll talk about in the next set of slides, so that you have certain amount of loyalty built with your customers and drive up repeat purchases. So going online, using marketplaces, building your own website, and even using social media marketplaces such as Facebook Shopping, WhatsApp, Instagram, all of these will be needed to maximize your presence and reach in order to build this safety net for the business. It's not that everything needs to be done at once, but because going online itself is a large step. But once you take the step, it's really important to explore all the available opportunities. Now let's look at what's changing from the consumer end of things. And finally, we can again summarize what retailers have to do to kind of leverage the changing supply chains and leverage the changing consumer behavior. This is the no-brainer. Mobile commerce is growing. India has potentially been one of the countries that leapfrogged the desktop shopping phase and went directly to mobile. But more and more customers are coming online, and that means that many of them are not used to or do not have experience shopping online. So they will require a very simple and responsive interface. This also means that they should be able to make the decision in a much shorter time frame. So think of this: if somebody was coming to a store, were committed to, they put that investment of either taking out their vehicle or getting to the store, spending that amount of time in the store. So the opportunity to convert a customer to a purchaser was significantly higher than when, say, somebody is shopping online. The stickiness is a lot lesser. So within the time frame where you have the customer's attention, you should give enough information for the customer to make the purchasing decision and make the purchasing experience seamless. Be it the type of order checkout, the type of payments which are made available to the customer, or even something as simple as adding to a cart and getting them through the process. these things have to be really thought through, and this is where a lot of the innovation is happening from the marketplace side of things. And similarly, but if you're setting up your own website, these are some of the areas that needs to be uh, built up to make it a seamless shopping experience to customers. The other big piece is the information which I just talked about. The display of the product has to be rich enough, such that the customer can make an informed decision. Becomes more and more important when they're making high cost purchasing decisions, and this is where real time data will play a major role. The other key trends which are getting accelerated right now are innovations in augmented reality and virtual reality. The touch and feel will go away once a customer comes to shop online. And how do you replace that? It's not fully replaceable, but how do you give a relevant experience when a customer is not, in proximity of a product will become very important. Again, investments in this space are picking up at a really fast pace. I have a personal example here. My sister runs a startup that does rehabilitation using virtual reality. So typically, these are virtual reality kits which are placed in physiotherapy clinics, and then people go there for physiotherapy. They use virtual reality to play certain type of games which are tuned to help them recover, whether it's a leg injury, a spinal cord injury, or something with the shoulder. Many of these. And before this entire situation, the business growth focus was in expanding these kits to physiotherapy clinics. And once the situation of COVID started, people are visiting clinics a lot more less. So the business model had to shift to creating home VR kits and make it intuitive enough such that consumer can buy it, completely set it up and do it on their own. But there is a lot of interest in augmented reality and virtual reality, and it's translating quite significantly to the retail space. First for fashion like sunglasses, watches, clothes, because that's where the experiential aspect comes in. But now even more than that, like for furniture, how does it look when you place it in your home? So give some basic models so that you can take the furniture and take an image of your home and see how it looks. So these are some key trends that are changing, but investments for these will all come centrally from technology drivers. And then where you should be placed is to get on to those certain marketplaces to be able to leverage this technology for your products. The other big change is how the supply chain, or sorry, the customer delivery chain transportation systems are set up. Traditional e-commerce supply chains were set up to fulfill products from anywhere in the country to anywhere else. They were not set up to do point-to-point deliveries. The folks who had, you know, uh, figured that part out are mostly the food delivery folks. But uh, due to travel restrictions and the need for supplying customers quicker, we will need to pick up inventory from locations closer and deliver. So some of these transportation networks will see massive changes. There will be investments in making the local supply chains, whether it be even in city or even a certain group of pin codes, from source from a certain group of pin codes and deliver to a certain pin codes in the vicinity. Those will be the ones that will start taking off very shortly, and we are seeing some of these changes happen. The good part is the food delivery networks have shown and led the way in this area, and it's about leveraging them from a cost effective perspective, because there is margin in food delivery delivery, which can offset the cost of point-to-point delivery networks. But from an e-commerce perspective, there will be low ASP products which cannot afford this point-to-point. So it's a question of how we bring in innovation to reduce the cost and also look at basket building opportunities so that the overall basket makes sense to be delivered from point to point location. The other change which is happening from customer behavior perspective is a lot of new customers are coming online. In addition to making the mobile app and interfaces easy for them, they also are concerned dealing with a faceless entity. They've been used to talking to a shopkeeper and buying from there. So they want an easy transition, and the most comfort for them will be if the same shopkeeper, or at least a shop they know exists in the vicinity, is available online, because then they know there's a certain amount of trust. Then if they have a problem, they can go either get the product returned or exchanged. And if they need some sort of a service, let's say they buy a water purifier, there's a value added service of installation and a repair that can happen easily, and they have somebody they can talk to. So local shopping will gain traction even from a digital presence perspective. So this is basically taking the vocal for local to a hyper local segment. And again, e-commerce will shift to making sure local purchases get prominence. And this is where the retail presence on the ground will get into the omni-channel setup, and get their online presence and use their leverage of establishment to serve the customers in the vicinity much better. So finally, we have seen what's changing in the supply chain, what are the customer expectations. Quickly wrap up with how can SMBs benefit from this. Sorry about that, my slides are a little slow. So where India stands, only about 2% of the SMBs are digitally enabled. So there's a massive opportunity or the massive gap where SMBs have to get digitally enabled. And digitally enabling means a multiple set of things: getting a presence online in a marketplace or any of the other shop destinations where customers go to shop. It also means investment in certain technologies, especially if you're running a retail shop, something like a point of sale system, right? So that you track inventory and make that inventory then digitally accessible to online customers. The CRM company will be able to track that if you have access to those customers, incentivize or in store. the digitally enabled faster the country boundaries in terms of managing them and reduce cost for owner to take a especially build so that they or have an go build that online presence if you haven't already. This is the opportunity where customers are changing behavioral shopping behavioral trends, and the right time is now for you to get into it and make the best of the situation. So yeah, so that's it from me. Thank you for the opportunity. I hope this helped you get some sense of the changes in supply chain and customer behavior, and you're able to take advantage of this. Amit, you may be on mute.
Hi, Vivek. Am I audible to you now?
Yes, you're audible now.
Great. So I was saying I would like to thank you a lot, thanks a lot for all the insights and information which you have provided today. One perspective which I can make out of here is that logistics plays a really important role in any supply chain, whether it is domestic or cross-border. So similarly, we bring upon a lot of logistic providers as our partners. So I would recommend our audience to pay a visit to their booths, which is available, and they for the next 1.5 hours, you have a chance to win through the raffle contest. You can win Amazon EcoDots. So visit any of the booths to enter the raffle. Our logistic partners available today are DHL, G Express, QShip, Pace Global, Delivery, and ShipRocket. Thank you. Thank you so much once again, Vivek. And thanks to our audience for listening out for this session. Stay tuned, and I will see you all in the next session in a short while from now. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. All the best, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great session.